What happens when a daddy warrior god and a mummy goddess of harvest love each other very much? Well, they do some stuff, and 9 months later out pops a little baby Sakuna who grows into a
hale and hearty adult!
Part RPG, part Metroidvania, and part rice farming simulator. Let's take a look at what Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is all about. So first up, this video is sponsored by Marvelous. They reached out to me through a third party, and I have to thank them for more than just the sponsorship, because I was planning on skipping Sakuna altogether, and I'm glad that I didn't. They don't have creative control over this video though, and they did not require me to submit this video to them for approval before posting it, so they're seeing it for the first time at the same time you are. The only requirement was that I tell you when the release date is. So Sakuna of Rice and Ruin will launch on the 10th of November for PC via Steam, and on the 20th of November for PS4 and Switch. And one of you will have a chance to win a digital copy on PS4, and I'll share details on that giveaway a little closer to launch. I guess the best way to describe Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is a mix between Rune Factory and a Vanillaware 2D RPG like Muramasa or Odin Sphere. At its core, it's a rice farming simulator and a celebration of Japanese culture, Shintoism, and mythology. The rice farming is central to the game. It's fun and quite addictive, but it's also the source of a lot of the story, and crucially, it's also your main source of power. Sakuna is the offspring of a warrior god and a goddess of harvest, so her strength is linked to the harvest. You do earn experience points elsewhere, but the main source of them will be collected through farming. And rice farming in Sakuna is a very deep system. Just one aspect of farming is fertilizer, and in this game, fertilizer isn't just some item you pick up, it's an entire crafting system in and of itself. Once you've tilled the fields and planted your seedlings, the rice will go through many stages of growth, and it's advantageous for you to cater the fertilizer to the current stage. You can focus on improving the roots, kernels, or leaves with your fertilizer, and you can add various specialities like improving the fragrance or aesthetics of the rice. The specialties directly affect your combat stats, which is why rice farming is more than just a simple minigame in Sakuna. It's important to get a good harvest, but it's also important to customize the growth. The items, materials, and ingredients that you use to facilitate your rice growing are mostly found in the other major part of this game, and that would be the side-scrolling dungeons. While rice farming is a fully 3D affair, the combat and exploration takes place in 2.5D. There's some platforming, plenty of combat, and I definitely classify it as a Metroidvania light. There are areas and treasures you cannot reach inside lots of the dungeons until you get specific skills or abilities. You'll be revisiting many of the dungeons for this reason and other reasons which we'll talk about in a moment. Combat is pretty fun, if not slightly frantic. I also feel like I suck at it, but that might have something to do with the keyboard and mouse default controls that you cannot rebind at the moment. It's hard to explain, but they're confusing specifically for my fingers. It's like trying to pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time. You know exactly what you need to do and how to do it, but your brain and arms get all tripped up. I hope rebinding will be added, but in the meantime, I'd suggest using a controller. It feels much more natural. You've got light and heavy attacks which string into combos with the use of directional inputs, so holding up and using light attacks will string together a series of attacks that launch enemies into the air and things of that nature. In addition to these basic attacks, you also have customizable skills that work a lot like the arts from the Tales series. You can set 4 in total and they all do wildly different things. They can be weaved into combos with basic attacks as well. These combat skills serve a dual purpose. You'll often make use of them outside of combat for exploration reasons, and that isn't the only part of the combat that serves a dual purpose. There is one other major component to both the combat and exploration, and that's the Celestial Scarf. This scarf is like a magic grappling hook. It can be used to latch onto surfaces, but it can also be used to latch onto enemies, and it has its own set of unique skills which you can customize. Latching onto an enemy could allow you to swing around behind it, or it could be used to flip an enemy upside down, revealing its weak point. So much like the rice farming portion of the game, combat is a much deeper system than it appears on the surface. But what ties all of these aspects together? The dungeons, the combat, and the rice farming? Well, that would be the story. Sakuna might be a goddess, but she isn't the big cheese in the lofty realm, and after an unfortunate mishap, she is banished to a dangerous island of demons along with a ragtag band of pathetic humans from the lowly realm. In order to get back home, she needs to uncover the mysteries of the island, find the source of all these evil creatures, and claim the region for her superior. Since humans are often useless, Sakuna has to take most matters into her own hands. That's why you're stuck doing both the farming and the fighting. At least the humans help you cook food and craft new tools and gear. The story doesn't exactly proceed in a linear fashion. Sometimes progression is based on harvest milestones, sometimes based on time, and other times based on how well you've explored all of the dungeons. Each dungeon has a set of goals which add to your exploration rank. As you increase your rank, you'll get access to more and more dungeons. There are also a lot of little tangents and these great little conversation segments when everyone sits down to eat. You can learn so much about genuine Japanese culture and folklore during these sequences, which are written under the guise of Sakuna educating the humans on the happenings of the lofty realm, while the humans regale tales of their lives in the lowly realm. These can happen somewhat dynamically too. Some are predestined to happen based on how far you are into the story or the time that has elapsed, while other conversations happen based entirely on what you decided to put on the menu. So when I was approached to do sponsored content for Sakuna, I basically said, well, okay, I could do a preview, like an overview type video, where I'm just running down what you do in the game, how it plays, etc. In other words, I didn't want to just make a 5-minute ad, and this is the video that was meant to be that preview. Here's the problem though, every time I opened the game with the intention of playing for 20 or 30 minutes to capture some gameplay, I ended up playing for hours. I have over 15 hours of raw footage, and that's just what I recorded, mostly by accident because I got so caught up in the game that I forgot to stop recording. Sakuna is addictive, it's got a great gameplay loop with a ton of variety, and once I'd completed my first harvest, I was on the hook. I'm not going to stop until I've grown the strongest, most fragrant, sexiest rice you've ever seen. Basically, what I'm saying is that this video wasn't meant to be a straight endorsement, but if that isn't one hell of an endorsement, then I don't know what is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.